happy campers! Ready for another math video tutorial. This time we are comparing fractions and it coincides with the math expressions lesson 4. We have 4 different strategies. Our first strategy is when our denominators are the same. So to illustrate that, if we have 2 fractions, both of them are broken up into fifths, and our first fraction is 2/5, and our second fraction is 4/5, it's pretty easy to tell which one is greater than and which one is less than, because the pieces are the same size. They're the same denominator. That means fifths are always going to be fifths in a whole. So if your denominators are the same, you just look at which one has more pieces shaded in. Pretty easy to see this one is 4/5 is greater than 2/5. Our second strategy is if our numerators are the same. So in this case, you have to think about the size of the pieces. Remember, if your denominator is a small number, like 4, the pieces are pretty big. If I have 1/4, those pieces are pretty big. That's 1/4, a quarter of your whole. But if the denominator is larger, in this case, we've got 6 pieces, those pieces are smaller because there's more pieces in the whole. So if we have 1/6 and 1/4, you have 1 piece out of each whole, so you just have to think about the size of those denominators, and the larger number means smaller pieces, so 1/4 is greater than 1/6. That's our second strategy. Okay, so our third strategy is using a benchmark fraction. Our benchmarks are 0, 1/2, and 1/2. So in this case, we have a fraction of 1/3 and we have a fraction of 3/5. So we look at these and see where they lie in our benchmarks. Now, if I were to take half of 1/3, or half of 3, half of 3 is 1.5. So that's 1/3 is less than half. So 1/3 is going to be about right here on our benchmark line. But half of 5 is 2.5, and I've got 3 pieces, so that is greater than 1/2, so 3/5 would be about right here. So using this benchmark, I can tell that because 3/5 is bigger than 1/2, and 1/3 is smaller than 1/2, that means then 1/3 is less than 3/5, using those benchmark fractions. Our last strategy, I'm going to go ahead and use the same fractions from last time, 1/3 and 3/5. If you don't like using benchmark fractions, and the numerators are different, so you can't use strategy 2. The denominators are different, so you can't use strategy 1. Another strategy is to find common denominators. So I'm going to make 2 new fractions right here, and I'm going to use a multiplier. Remember that last video tutorial? I'm going to use a multiplier to come up with a common denominator. In this case, the common denominator I'm going to use is 15. So I'm going to multiply, my multiplier over here is going to be 5, because 3 times 5 is 15, so that means my numerator is 5. And on this side, on this fraction, I'm going to use a multiplier of 3. So now I can see if I were to cut our pictures into equal sizes, I would have 15ths, pretend these are all the same size. So now I've got 15ths, and if I were to count here, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my 5/15ths. And I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's my 9/15ths. So now I can go back to strategy number 1, which is if the fractions have a common denominator, I just look at the numerators and I can easily tell 5/15ths is smaller than 9/15ths. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please come and talk to me, and I hope you have a great day.